credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
And a very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord with the Wednesday, August 17th edition of the CBC Evening News. In our top story, Opposition leader Mia Mottley launched a blistering attack on the budget presented by Finance Minister Chris Sinclair when she was given the opportunity to reply on behalf of the Barbados Labour Party this evening in Parliament. The constituency representative for St. Michael North East charged that it was an insensitive and forgettable presentation.
Nothing that he said, sir, will live beyond the headlines of today and the suffering of the people that our people will experience in the next few months. Nobody's going to remember this next week, as has happened all of the budgets before. Their problems that existed the week before the budget shall continue to plague the individual sectors, the households and the businesses next week when this 72-hour exercise is done. The hopelessness and frustration of many shall remain with greater intensity when once the dust is settled on this debate.
Well, during her reply, Ms. Mottley also slammed the proposed National Social Responsibility Levy to be introduced at a rate of 2% on all imports into Barbados, and which is said to assist in offsetting the costs associated with financing public health care.
Tax is spelled T-A-X. We now have what? A National Social Responsibility Levy. A National Social Responsibility Levy. To give a fancy name for a three-letter word called tax. And to try to hide it behind the provisioning for health care because he feels that he can make it more palatable to Bajans if he does that.
Ms. Mottley reiterated her lack of confidence in Minister Sinclair, noting that the budget revealed that nothing is being done to address the country's mounting deficit.
And in May of this year, sir, the government told the IMF that in order to address the difficulties related to debt and deficit, mounting deficit, don't mind the 19-month or 31-month program, the deficit is as high yesterday, as it was when he delivered his budget on the 13th of August 2013, the exact same 7.9%. He set a target to bring it down yesterday. That was about the same target that he set in August 2013 as well. Bring it down to 5.4, 5.8%. Deja vu.
When responding to the growth measures and initiatives put forward in yesterday's presentation, the opposition leader chalked them up as little trinkets to try to relax the many concerned Barbadians.
In my 25 years, sir, in either the other place or this place in September, I have never seen so wide a cross-section of Barbadians getting involved in advancing ideas and requests for things that they wanted urgently to see the Minister of Finance put in his budget. And what he gave each of them was a little trinket, a little trinket, a little trinket. Not because it would stabilize their sector, but because it would appear to buy back some grace for this government with them, a form of political hush money.
Well, Ms. Mottley has also raised concern about two major tourism investment projects which government says will start shortly. She says there are a number of issues to be ironed out regarding the multi-million-dollar Hyatt Hotel earmarked for Bridgetown, and it's for this reason, she says, more consultation on the project is needed.
Unlike the member for St. Michael North Westfield, that we need new investment in Bridgetown. I really feel so. And the people in the city of Bridgetown would welcome it. But what we can't have is insulting the intelligence of people to build a 15-story building in a World Heritage Site where there are conventions and best practices set out, and without consultation with the public. And what we cannot have, Minister of Tourism, is you telling people every 2 months that it's starting next week or next month. As you told us in the budget last year, it will start in August last year.
Well, Ms. Motley also queried the status of the Sam Lords project, which she believes is nowhere near ready for the construction phase.
You know, I was the most shocked person to learn that the detailed drawings of the hotel for Sam Lords have not been completed and have not been submitted to the town planner. You understand that the Deputy Chief Town Planner said last year that it typically takes 4.5 months to approve drawings. But we had a groundbreaking in September last year, and we had a groundbreaking 2 to 3 months ago.
And the Barbados Labour Party wants government to outline a clear vision for the sugar industry. Ms. Motley made this clear as she questioned government's pursuit of a multi-million-dollar single factory option.
How can you be building a $500 million factory with a sugar industry that earned less than $10 million in 2015, according to the 2015 Social and Economic Report? It earned $6.5 million, according to the report laid by the Minister of Finance yesterday. And I say to you that if it is that you are making a case for it because you are generating electricity at a price that is within reach of what makes sense for Light and Power to do, then say so. But you haven't even said that.
Ms. Motley adds that industry players also need greater assurances and consideration.
We did a rubbing shoulders about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and there is distinct concern among the people involved in the industry. This government keeps making promises to them, but you can't determine that you're going to send subsidies to people at a time when they can no longer plant. Agriculture is time sensitive. You have to plant at a certain time of the year.
Well, coverage of the budget debate continues on MCTV channel 115 and will also be streamed live on the web at www.cbc.bb. Well, some people are now going an extra mile to dump illegally in Barbados, and the problem is now affecting some operations at the island's sewage treatment plants. Shane Seeley looks at the issues on today's edition of Water Wednesdays, coming up at the end of the news. That story and more. Stay with us.
Don't let your data experience slow you down. Step up to Digicel, Barbados' fastest 4G network. More than twice as fast as the slow network. Get more with Digicel. Digicel, the fastest 4G network in Barbados. Dial *153 to sign up to Digicel today.
Play the new hot ticket, Super Sizzling Sevens, and you could be swimming in cash with a top prize of $107,000 and 21 chances to win $107,000 on each ticket.
A lot of people think that fast bikes are cool, and the girls sure like the guys who ride them. But like so many things about life, you gotta be careful. Having sex without a condom is like riding a bike without a helmet. It's just plain dumb. It's okay to have fun, as long as you're smart about it. My name is Daniel the Lion Fortress, and I'm different, and I'm making a difference.
Live up. Love, protect, respect.
Well, the budgetary proposals and financial statement has received a passing grade of sorts from several business leaders, but there is still some concern over the slow implementation process. The budget was dissected and thoroughly discussed during a post-breakfast meeting organized by the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry and PricewaterhouseCoopers at the Hilton Hotel this morning. Chairman of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, Roseanne Myers, says it was a positive budget and an attempt to stimulate growth. She welcomed the tax amnesty, saying it will assist BHTA members along with the plans to increase the special development areas.
The whole issue of providing incentives for investment is very important. It was interesting, though, that the area between Carlisle Bay and St. Lawrence Gap was left out. And that probably has the largest percentage of derelicts and businesses in need of some extra boost. And certainly you have spent a lot of money on a beautiful boardwalk, which rates very high on TripAdvisor, so it would seem to me that it would mesh. But I believe that those things can be corrected very easily by the Minister of Finance, having heard that this is perhaps a little bit of an oversight. But the Carlisle Bay to St. Lawrence Gap area definitely would be something that we would want considered.
Well, former senior economist at the Central Bank and professor of economics at the University of the West Indies CAFL campus, Dr. Winston Moore, says the 2% social responsibility levy will generate revenue, but will also have an impact on businesses.
If individuals respond to that 2% tax by purchasing less goods and services, then the expected revenue might not be as large as what we're projecting. However, and also the application, if the 2% tax is on goods and services that are not very responsive to price increases, then it would generate a bit more revenue as well. So that is something that we'll need to monitor in terms of the revenue that is generated from that imposition of the tax. I think going down the road, we probably would need to talk about how we're going to implement it on domestic production. I'm still a little bit clear on how we're going to implement the tax on domestic production.
Meantime, Chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Charles Herbert, described the issue of a national health insurance plan as a huge development for the island.
If in fact it is shifting or ultimately going to shift $400 million of increased taxation onto the population, that's a huge effect. The levy, which the others have talked about, we don't have a representative here from the Manufacturers Association, but we certainly hope that the imposition of that levy on local inputs is done in a way that is conscious not to disadvantage them against imports and not to disadvantage our local producers that export.
Meantime, partner and territory advisory services leader at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Oliver Jordan, says there should have been further discussion on the issue of privatization in that budget.
There's a lot of government operations that could be attractive to the private sector. For example, this hotel that we're sitting in, the Hilton, there's the airport. And I think there does need to be some discussion in terms of what entities of government can be privatized and then use the proceeds from that privatization to help reduce the debt. Again, we cannot continue to tax, so we do have to look at alternative means. So at some point, I do hope that there is some discussion around privatization.
Well, the idea of the establishment of duty-free zones across select portions of the country has received the backing of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Senior Vice President of the Chamber, Edward Clark, says it's something they have been pushing for and are hoping that it can be in place for December.
We really look forward to that. The tourism development zones, I think, is a big plus, raising or increasing the span and the scope of these zones. What we didn't hear was what could be the possible impact on the revenue side in this regard.
Well, the announcement that temporary officers in the public service with more than 3 years continuous service will be appointed was also given the thumbs up by the Chamber of Commerce official. Mr. Clark, however, would like mechanisms put in place to assess employee performance.
We must strive for productivity, increased productivity in Barbados. And I think it's important that the productive sectors, those impacting the foreign exchange side of the business, those impacting anything to do with increased productivity, are given favor. And I hope that when these things come into effect, that we see the government paying much closer attention to those things. All in all, I think it's a bit of a give here and take their budget. The Minister of Finance obviously is trying to balance things.
More upgrades are on the card for the Bridgetown port. Chairman David Harding says the plans include building a 6th berth to help expand the port's reach in the cargo sector. He was speaking as the Barbados Port Inc. and the ports of Tenerife signed a memorandum of understanding this morning.
We are now capable of discharging ships at around 30 plus containers per hour. It is our ambition to further build a berth 6 and create the environment for further cargo business, particularly transshipment business. But while we are doing that, we have never lost sight of the cruise activity. that is important not only for the Port of Bridgetown, but for the economy.
Well, the MOU will assist with trade and cooperation in cruise tourism. It will also be key in the ongoing Barbados 50 yacht race. Commercial Director of the Ports of Tenerife, Iram Diaz-Pastor, explains the port's role in the race.
All the vessels departing from London, they will be coming to Tenerife. They will be in the marina, the best marina that we have, that is just in the middle of the city. We will be trying to provide as much comfortable things as possible. All the city hall, the mayor, the government of the Canary Islands, they are willing to give all the efforts to this rally. We believe that is something that is not just for 1 year. We want to continue and to increase this relation, not just one rally this year, that is a very important year for Barbados, but also to try to continue to strengthen these relations.
A man is now dead after he was shot by a police officer around 10 this morning. He is 32-year-old Dwayne Husbands of Trent's Drive in St. Lucie, who neighbors say had a mental history. Acting Police Public Relations Officer, Acting Inspector Stephen Griffith says a senior commander of the police force has ordered an investigation into the matter.
This morning after 10 o'clock, the police responded to a matter at Trent St. Lucie, where they were confronted by Dwayne Husbands. As a result, he was injured and he subsequently passed away.
And residents described Mr. Husbands as cool and quiet.
Well, for me, he was a quiet person. I mean, he might have his challenges, but I was a Saturday morning. He walked straight to my gate and picked some limes off of my tree. And he told me, "Are you going to pick some limes?" And that's not the first time. And, you know, if I see him on the road, I give him a drop. And he was a cool person, you know. And like I said, he might have his challenges, but to me, he was all right.
Well, close to 4,000 pounds of illegal drugs were destroyed by the Royal Barbados Police Force in an incinerator in Christchurch this morning. Acting Police Public Relations Officer, Acting Inspector Stephen Griffith says the drugs came from various operations across the island and cases being adjudicated in the courts.
In relation to cannabis, we destroyed 1,685.34 kilos. That is equivalent to 3,707.7 pounds of cannabis. In relation to cocaine, that was 49.94 kilos or 109.8 pounds. And also destroyed were some 11,913 cannabis plants ranging from seedlings to about 12 feet tall.
Ahead, a look at some of the stories from around our region. Stay with us.